It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Marc Williams.
And I'm Cathey Armillas. We are super excited today because if you're thinking like, ooh, I'm in this weird world and like, what is going to happen? So many high-tech things going on. I don't even know this new AI. Steve Brown is the guy that we have on our show today, and he is an expert in all things AI. He's got 30 years in the high-tech world and AI. He worked for Intel, DeepMind. He is an AI futurist. And get this, he speaks on this all the time, Marc. He's a fabulous speaker. He has spoken in over 60 cities, 15 countries, and 6 continents. We're just going after that one continent. We're going for the Penguins. Steve Brown, welcome to our show, my friend.
Thank you, Cathey. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you, Marc, for the first time. Good to be here.
Steve, I am, you and I, we met each other because we were both part of a mastermind group for speakers, and all of us speakers have all of our different things that we speak on, but our commonality was that we all are using speaking as part of our business model. And I think, Steve, when you first came to our group, even back in the day, which is so funny to think, 5 years ago could be back in the day for technology, Marc. Isn't that wild? Because we weren't having conversations about AI back then. But Steve, one of the things that you really brought to our group was how industries will start to change because of technology. So please give us a little bit of background on that, and welcome to our show.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, 5 years ago, it seems like so long ago, and I had a full head of hair then, of course. No. It's a lot has changed in that time, and a lot has changed in just the last year. And as a futurist, it was my job. When I worked at Intel, I was a futurist there. When I was at DeepMind, I ran their marketing, communications, and public affairs teams, but I also was their in-house futurist. It was my job in both of those positions to think about the world 5 and 10 years ahead. So it's sort of the way my brain works. And certainly I've been able to see for a while that artificial intelligence, along with another set of technologies and blockchain and Internet of Things and virtual reality and augmented reality, they were all going to come together to change the way that humans interact with information and also interact with each other. And that was going to be a disruptive change. It's happened even more quickly than I imagined. And when I was working at DeepMind, I'm surrounded by 1,300 AI experts. And even they were taken aback by the pace of change and just amazed by how quickly things were going. And so, yeah, it's happening very quickly. And the impact is that, if you wind this forward another 5 years, we could be, it's 2023 now as we record this. By 2028, I was just listening to a video recording of Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, the big chip company, talking at the DealBook event in New York. And his guess is that by 2028, we will have artificial general intelligence, AGI, which is an AI that is as capable at nearly all tasks, as a human being is. So 5 years from now, things are going to look very different than they do today. And that's both scary for people and incredibly exciting.
Wow.
It's so interesting that you said exciting and yet scary, because I think that's the scary word is the big word here, right? As much as we evolve as a people, as a society, as a humanity, we know that change happens, but we're very afraid of it.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest, from your perspective, what has been the biggest fear of AI?
For me, I'm a bit tired of hearing people talk about Terminator. A fabulous movie, really enjoyed it. But I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about, machines stomping on skulls and taking over the world and Skynet. Outside chance, let's call it, but that's not what I worry about. In the short term, my biggest worry is AI is an incredible scaler. So on the positive side of the equation, that's going to allow us to scale up education, medical and scientific research, other breakthroughs. On the downside, it's going to scale up the bad actors as well. So what that means is misinformation, disinformation at scale, personalized phishing attacks, ransomware attacks that sound like your daughter calling you in a panic and needing help, which are just tuned to really hit every part of your psyche and make you do things you wouldn't otherwise do. There's lots of really bad actor stuff coming, and cyber attacks being another one of them. So those are the things I worry about in the short term. In the long term, and when I say long term, I'm talking a period of time when AI is able to pretty much do every job there is, and we all essentially go through forced retirement, and we all get to live that life of leisure that we heard about in movies in the 70s, frankly. We're going to have to completely reimagine and rewire society and the economy, and then we're going to have to figure out what to do with our lives. And my worry there is that people's sense of identity, their sense of agency in the world, how they create meaning in their lives will be challenging for some people. And that we'll have to help people to make that change, make that navigation into, what would you do if you didn't have to work?
That is such a big question. Like, you're right, Steve, that really hits. For most people, work takes up the biggest part of their week.
What's the first thing you talk about at a cocktail party? Oh, hello, what do you do? Right? It's part of how we define ourselves. As well as the football team you support or what your hobbies might be, that kind of defines you. But a big part of it is what you do for work.
That's a crazy world. Mark, go ahead. You look like you were going to say something.
To see cogs turning.
Yeah, you can see it.
You know what, Steve? Because there are people in this world, we all know this to be true, who work the 9 to 5, and yes, that is their identity. But if you ask them, what would you do if you didn't have to work? They'd say, hallelujah. That's what they would say. I don't know if that's what they would ultimately mean, right? Yeah. But there are people who are doing their passionate work, their purposeful work.
Yeah, and they will keep doing it. Yeah.
Right? And there's a fear that, what if you can't do that? That makes me very scared. That makes me very scared when I think about the work that Cathey and I get to do all the time, whether speaking or coaching, training, the work you're doing because you're in this world. Like, what if?
Yeah, and so to make you feel a little better, there's multiple theories of this, right? One theory is that over time, AI gets so good that it can do everything. At which point it relieves us of having to do things that we don't want to do. But we can still do the things that we want to do. And it might not be economically valued in the same way, but that's part of the broader equation of figuring out how to fund everybody's existence if work is done by machines. Then there's another theory and approach, which is that the same way that when the railways came, it put a lot of cartwrights, buggy makers, the people who made whips, the people who bred horses, put them all out of business. But it created far more jobs in that it created people who built the trains, drove the trains, laid the track, built the stations, managed the stations, the guy who was the platform manager, the person who had to work out the timetables, the person who ran the buffet car, ordered all the food. Suddenly, you've created way more jobs than you've destroyed. And so that's the other theory is AI comes in, sweeps away a lot of traditional jobs, enabling humans to add value at an even higher level. Now, the challenge of that is maybe you have to educate people so that they're able to participate in those new jobs. So it becomes an education, upskill, reskill challenge more than a kind of mass malaise challenge.
I mean,
And
I'm going to go.
We don't know how it's going to go yet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go way out there for a second, right? What if, and maybe we can reel it back to, maybe we can use the speaking profession, since it's something that all three of us share, and maybe kind of workshop it and talk about it specifically, and maybe look at different scenarios. I think that's a really good idea, Steve, that you brought up before. But what if, for instance, all of the things that kids were going to college for right now don't mean anything anymore? Even a surgeon, like, if you're a heart surgeon right now, or you're going to college, or you are in school to become a heart surgeon, but at some point in AGI, right? This would be kind of a robotic version of AI, or whatever, a physical form of AI and intelligence can do it, and can probably do it way better than we can. It just leaves a lot of people, even people that don't even have work yet. It leaves a lot of people like, ooh, where do we go? What do we do? It does leave a lot of ambiguous thoughts, right?
It's the number, what you're poking at is the number one question that I get.
Yeah.
After I've done my talk and I'm coming off stage, and people grab me in the corridors, or literally grab me as I come off stage. Literally. It's amazing. Amazing people will grab me. So I don't mind, it's fine. But yeah, because they're so enthusiastic about the content and the question they have. And the question that they have is, my kid is about to go to college, or my kid has to make these decisions in school, or my grandchild, what should I tell them? What should they do? That's the number one question I get. The number two question is, what about Terminator? But the number one by far is, how should I prepare my kids? And I tell them, there's some professions I wouldn't recommend any longer. Accountancy is probably going to be one of the first ones to go, for example. But things that are physical in nature, that require physical manipulation and problem solving, the trades, plumbing, electrician, they're going to be around probably for the longest. So, but it is part of the equation that kids, parents have to have this conversation now about, what's the best bet? What's going to give me the best longevity in a career? And really the answer I give them is, you're probably not going to guess right. So teach your kids to be resilient and agile and flexible, and to embrace change, and teach them to learn constantly and be curious. And that's how they will navigate the world and be most successful.
I love that. I
tell you, curiosity and imagination will never go extinct. Never go extinct. Steve, when you mentioned that, and Cathey, your question reminds me of what many of the schools are doing now. And I don't know if any school's got a futurist position. That would be interesting for schools to have a futurist position. But some schools are trying to predict what industries will look like 5 or 10 years down the line, so that they can start teaching their children now. But Steve, to your point, even that's kind of hard, right? Because you don't know.
It is, but you can make some fairly educated guesses. And I do get hired by universities. I get hired by college associations. So they outsource their futurists and bring me in, and I help them. And I try and help them identify what are the skills that they can teach people to give them the best chance of navigating the job market once they pop out the other end. Because over time, AI is able to do things now that it wasn't able to do a year ago, and certainly not able to do 5 years ago. And 2 years from now, it's going to be able to do probably some reasoning that it can't do now. So, it's a moving target. The best thing you can teach is resilience, grit, curiosity, right? All of those things. And the other thing that I would add to that list, and there was a headline in, I want to say it was an Atlantic article, and it was back in sort of February, March time this year. And it said that the most important skill of the 21st century is learning how to talk to an AI. Because the way that you communicate with an AI determines how good the results are that you get out of it. And being able to partner with a machine is a whole new set of skills that we all are going to have to learn.
Okay, so Steve came to our PDX mastermind group, our speakers group yesterday. And this was a funny topic that came up, Steve. So I'm going to bring it up. Is somebody in our group said that they found that when they spoke to they interacted with AI in more of a polite fashion, it seemed like he got better output. And he asked Steve, am I imagining that, or is that a thing? And Steve, you can say your answer.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. Yeah. And my theory, the reason why is that all it's doing is when these LLMs, large language models, which is all of these AIs like ChatGPT and Bard and so on, when they're operating, I was going to say all they're doing, but it's very sophisticated all they're doing is guessing the next word. So based on what you've said, it accurately guesses what the first word it should respond to you is, and then what the next word, and what the next word, and the next word. And it's really not that sophisticated at the highest level, but the way it's able to accurately figure out what to say to you in response to a question or an inquiry or a prompt is it has to know all of this stuff about the world, and it's been trained on all this data. And a model, which is what an AI is all of that data kind of compressed down into a neural network. When you prompt it politely, you're nudging it one way or another, because fundamentally the model doesn't understand the difference between you requesting it to write a poem, which is a creative task, where it's having to make stuff up, and when you are asking it to give you a factual answer to a question. So that's why you get these things called hallucinations, where it'll just make stuff up, and you have to be ready for that. And there's a percentage of the time that will give you a made-up answer. Now, when you ask it politely, and you ask it politely to perhaps check its answers, make sure it's factual, it puts extra effort into that because it's part of the prompt. It responds to those elements, and it's trying to make you happy. It's trying to fulfill the prompt based on what you've written. So that's why politeness works. And if you just add a little bit like, hey, it's really important to me that I get this right. Can you make sure that you check your answers and they're accurate? And you'll get better results.
Wow.
Get out.
Right?
Yeah.
So that time, Steve, when I argue with ChatGPT, because I said that I was the author of my book that I was looking at, and it told me that I wasn't the author. It probably is mad at me now because I argued with it.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, I actually put in who wrote this book, although I wrote the book, right? And then it said that it was somebody else, and I was like, no, I said no, it was by Cathey Armillas. And then it said Cathey Armillas is an international speaker and marketer and speaking coach, but is not the author of this book. Like literally even like double down on me, Steve. And I was like, check your shit. Like she is. All right, I'm gonna go back and say sorry.
I'm curious. Was it with ChatGPT 3.5 or?
No, it was the earlier version.
Early one, yeah. It might have it right now.
Yeah, it might. I'm gonna check now, and I'm gonna be polite. I'm gonna actually I'm gonna test it. It's gonna be my takeaway.
No, go ahead, Cathey.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just moving the conversation to the speaking, and Mark, I know your brain is just throwing all these fireworks all over the place. I can see it. I'm curious how, all of us as speakers, like, even because I'm imagining, Steve, if one of the things that Mark and I think we both do really well in what we do, and we're about to launch a business, by the way, on training speakers to be better, and so, let's kind of talk that through. It's like, but there's going to be a day coming pretty soon where, the artificial intelligence will not only be able to probably predict some of the things better than we could, or say, we think our uniqueness is going to be, our experience and our uniqueness, but AI will have collectively the whole world's worth of experience, not just my own or Mark's, or I don't know. Let's talk about that.
Yes, but if you're in hospital and you're in trouble, and you're having some tests done, do you want a robot to come in and hold your hand and tell you you have stage 4 liver cancer? You want to be a human doctor. I think we're always going to want human connection for some of the things in our lives, not all, but for the things that are important, there will be a difference, and we will want to hear, even if an AI doctor is significantly more capable than a human doctor, I would like an AI doctor and a human doctor to be a team of two and work together to figure it out, but I want the human doctor to talk to me. And I think the same is true of other communication interactions. Do I want a next generation Optimus robot from Tesla to come out and present to me on how to present? No, absolutely not. I want a human connection. So I think I did some work with the mortgage industry about 4 or 5 years ago, and we were talking about blockchain disrupting the mortgage sector, and it's disrupted part of it, and you see Rocket Mortgage coming in, but all the mortgage brokers were really worried. And one of the worries was, well, Amazon's going to get into the mortgage business. They haven't yet. And they said, well, what should we do, Steve? What should we do? Well, double down on your humanity and focus on WACD, what Amazon can't do, which is building rapport, face-to-face contact with your clients, human connection, knowing the names of their kids and, build those connections. If you're a speaker, the first thing I do when I get hired by a client is get to learn everything I can about that client. What are their expectations? What are people in the audience worried about? And make sure I connect with them on a human level, because that's what speakers, that's what will keep people hiring speakers and not hiring an AI to teach them on an online class on a Zoom like this, right?
Steve, here's what scares me. I'm going to keep using this word scares because I think that's such a human word. And I love the phrase double down on your humanity. I really wrote that down. What worries me is the potential of engineers trying to figure out how to get AI to double down on its humanity. I heard somebody recently ask the question, how can we create an app that can show human empathy? And so it's always interesting, like our human minds are incredible and we're so incredibly curious that it's like we're always trying to figure out the next thing. And so it worries me that, and let's talk about speaking for a moment. Yes. Right now, if I put a topic into, let's say, ChatGPT, it'll probably spit out something that sounds more like an essay than a speech. That sounds more like information, but doesn't have my flair or your flair or Cathey's flair. 5, 10, 15 years from now, will that be a concern for us? That AI they could take every word in Cathey's biography, figure out her whole life, and then her personality can come out. Maybe that's Terminator.
Well, or maybe it's a new business model that allows you to be on 17 stages at one time. Right? Don't think about being replaced. Think about it as a tool, a way to clone yourself and make more money. Check out, there's a video, I don't know if you share links with your podcast, but you can just Google this on YouTube. Peter Diamandis, who is at the forefront of thinking on these things. He and I had a book come out at the same time, almost about exactly the same topics. So we think in a lot of the same ways. He did a video a few months back. You just have to look up Peter Diamandis, Peterbot. And he worked with his AI partner, who happens to also have the name Steve Brown, different Steve Brown. And they created this avatar. It looks like Peter Diamandis. It sounds like Peter Diamandis. And this large language model behind this avatar was trained on all of Peter's speeches, all of the books he's written, and all ingested. And he was able to have a conversation with himself. And the Peter bot didn't get everything right, didn't answer everything the way that Peter Diamandis would in person, but it was, a fair facsimile given it's 2023. So to your point, Mark, play that forward 10 years. Yeah, there's a good chance you could create a version of yourself a surrogate that you could send out for clients who aren't willing to pay the fee to have you fly there in person. They'd love to have you there in person, but they can't afford to, or it's in a different part of the world and you're going to be asleep then. So you just send them the digital view and it represents you and they pay you a fee and everybody's happy.
Mm.
Man, you just blew my mind. You went from Terminator to Max Headroom.
Yeah, no kidding. Max Headroom. Oh my gosh, I remember that. Wow. There's so many complexities in that, of course, and I don't want to get too caught up in the tech detail. By the way, anybody watching, like Steve Brown did a presentation to our group yesterday. Just the way that he explained it all and the way he brought it all together and showed us some really cool, I don't want to give away the things in your presentation, Steve, but showed us some really cool videos and things that were like very mind-blowing. Super good presentation on AI.
Thank you.
And how we can all lean into it. So if you're looking for somebody to come into your organization, Steve Brown's your guy for sure. But Steve, I know it gets really complex too, because then you're talking about, I mean, and I don't want to go deep down that rabbit hole, right? I don't think, but you know, you have a digital version of yourself, but yet the common version of somebody saying, hey, I want a speaker coach, but I can't really afford to pay for the human one. And I'm just going to put some things into ChatGPT or whatever version of tech that's out there at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And now that has pieces of Cathey Armillas in it, Steve Brown, Marc Williams. It has kind of everybody in it. So you're not going to get the flavor of one of us. You're going to get the conglomerate of all of us. And then it starts getting in that space of like, you can use somebody's voice. You can like, and so we have to like own, and I think that's where you were heading, right? We have to own all of the things that belong to us, our digital image, our face,
Anytime a new technology comes along, there typically has to be a new business model that comes behind it to make it work for everybody. So when you think about what happened with the Hollywood strike, right? Hollywood realized, oh crap, our writers and our actors and all the production staff are at risk here. Things are going to change, and they are going to change. There's way too much cost involved in making productions today. They are ridiculously expensive. There's far too many people involved in making all of them, and there is a global market and a lot of translation that has to happen. And so I think AI is going to come in and completely disrupt that marketplace. But what they had to do to get people off strike and to come back is to, and I don't know the details of what they agreed, but I assume there's some business model in there that says, who owns your likeness? How does the money flow if your likeness is used and you can license it? What control is there over that? What's the remuneration look like? And people make their own decisions. Grimes came right out with when people were starting to make new music and said, you use my voice, you make whatever you want, just cut me in 50-50. Dolly Parton is on the other end of the scale. Dolly Parton, she's very clear. Once Dolly's gone, there's no more Dolly music. That's it. I don't want my voice to be reproduced. That's it. And that's her right, and that's great. But I think with all of these things, yes, business models will come behind the technology to make sure that people get paid for their contributions. And you're seeing it already with, Adobe and Getty Images. They're creating their own image generators that are, they have licensed all of the content that's used to train them, so that the people whose content was used to train these AIs are getting a little something for it.
Yeah. I saw a very funny little clip of Weird Al Yankovic. We all know, and he was riffing on Spotify, and he did this funny little thing, and he just said, thank you to all my million, and I forgot how many millions I think it was like there was 60 million or 120 million. I forgot what the exact number that he said in the little video. Said thank you, because from the information I've received, there's been like 120 million downloads of my songs and my work. Thank you to everybody. My cut into it is $12. So thank you to all my fans for a nice sandwich. And so obviously he was making fun of like this technology had had utilized his work and not given him a cut or whatever. So you're right. I think we're in the middle of that space of where we're all going to have to figure out how to capitalize on it, how to protect, how to, how to do it all. Yeah.
I was going to say how to partner with it.
Yeah. How to partner with it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How do you stay ahead of it? I mean, the people who are making the most money in music today are the ones who do tours. The Taylor Swifts of the world, the Depeche Modes, the U2s at the Sphere, right? They figured out a while ago that money is going out of record sales. Listen to me, record sales.
Shut your mouth, Steve. Shut your mouth.
Steve.
I was a DJ back in the 80s when I had hair. So I remember I used to spin a lot of records. I stream like crazy now, but So, but let's say traditional music sales and moving to streaming, they realize there's not going to be much money in that market. And because, you can imagine it like a balloon, and, you squeeze the balloon and all the money goes to one end and away from the artists, unfortunately. So they figured out it's going to be a touring business, and that's how people make money now. The streaming, you release on streaming in order to get people to come out and see you and to do an in-person appearance. And that's why ticket prices went shooting up.
That's true. They have shot up dramatically.
Ever since streaming, right? The last 10 years.
Yeah, that's true. And I didn't really think about the correlation of that. That's very interesting.
That's why.
That's a good point, Steve. I think you're bringing up some really good analogies to, like, if I think about it now, if it angers some people, of course, that have been in the music industry that did it in a different way, that they're now not able to make money the same way. And so the people that would stay angry and just be pounding their fist about, like, hey, how come it's not how it used to be, are probably the ones that will get left behind. The ones like the U2s, the Taylor Swifts, the Depeche Mode that you're talking about, that are like, hey, I'm okay. All right. I get it. I'm going to put a bunch of stuff out into the world. I want to stream, go viral, whatever. And then when I show up, money.
The problem is we can't all be Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah, that is a problem.
Steve, I want to be Taylor Swift.
Mark, you could be. I didn't say everybody could be, but Mark, you could be.
Yeah.
What it reminds me of? If the two of you probably familiar with the Kodak story, I mean, that Kodak, right, went out of business because it did not want to accept that there was going to be the digital. And Steve, to your point, it's the same thing. I remember
who built the first. Who built the first digital camera? Kodak. Yeah. They just put it to one side.
Wow. Yeah. They're like, we don't want the world to have this technology.
Well, I think partly it was the innovator's dilemma. If we come out with this digital, then, it will destroy all of our chemical business. But I think it was also, they couldn't see the curve, which was, well, it's really crappy quality now, but over a few successive generations, it'll get to be amazing quality and will displace what we do. So, anyway, sorry, Mark, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, actually, no, you just spurred another thought. It's like, we keep going through this. We keep going through these major changes, and we keep getting uncomfortable with it. How come we're not learning from, remember how everybody fought against streaming music? There were all kinds of bands, LimeWire, all these different, I just really aged myself with LimeWire. But in any case.
And LimeWire is not even the first.
That's right, it wasn't even. But we keep getting in this cycle of, we're fighting advancement only to see that we've figured out how to get ahead of it. And yet we still, every time a new turn comes, we keep getting uncomfortable with it.
Well, there are people who stand to make money by keeping things the old way as long as possible. So they are motivated to slow things down. And then there are other people who figure out how to get ahead of it and make money in the new world by being there first. And they fall into two camps, and that's natural. And then everybody gets caught in between. But there'll always be people who, there's money to keep things the way they were. I mean, the studios right now, the Hollywood studios, they want to keep production the way it is because that's how they make money. But, when you can do digital sets and digital performances And certainly you can take content from other countries and translate it from Korean to English and French and Arabic and whatever language you want, and lip sync the mouth so it looks like those people are speaking natively. Suddenly you have a lot of content from all over the world that you can now enjoy in 250 languages. So it's going to change, but there will be people who want to slow things down.
That's one of the things I really enjoy from listening to you, Steve, is you give so many instances and examples of where people are doing things or the possibility of things that it starts to make your creative mind go. Like I didn't ask you about it yesterday, but one of the things I was thinking about, somebody in my family turned me and my husband onto the show, The Extraordinary Attorney Woo. And it's a Korean show that they have. And I mean, I watched it, and you're right. This is probably what, 2022 version or whenever it came out. And you're looking at it and it's all in Korean, but then they're doing it in English, and you're looking and you're like, it's not quite right, but it's 80% there. So I'm curious. I wonder what technology they use. I don't know what they use, and I don't know if you know anything about that, but it doesn't matter. Obviously, there's some technology that they use to do the dub over, and at some point it will be flawless.
Yeah, check out, it's a company called Flawless. Flawless, I should say in my best American accent. So
Flawless.
Flawless. And
watch it, Steve. Watch it.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I say things and people like, I always have to go bald. I'm bald.
Yeah.
Because people think, oh, you're bald?
Yeah. I have no hair.
Yeah. Or if I ask for a glass of water on the plane, all the time the flight attendant will go, excuse me? And eventually I break down and go, can I have some water? Oh, water. Water.
Water.
Anyway,
I don't have water.
I've learned that there's certain words I have to say in American or people don't quite hear them right. So Flawless is a company. They did a demo, and there's a video on YouTube. I think it was at a Bloomberg event, and they do a live demo, re-editing a piece of content. And they're able to edit the video to instantly create, if you've got an NC-17 film where people are swearing up a storm, you want to create the PG-13 version, you can just change a few of the swear words or take them out completely for a PG. And if you want to re-edit a scene, they even showed a capability where on the timeline of the video edit, it pulls out the dialogue on each of the clips in the timeline. And then you're able to go in and edit the clip. So change the dialogue, and it will re-record the voice in the actor's tone and voice and recapture that performance and resync the lips. And it does it like that. It's amazing. It renders quite quickly. And they've built in a permission management system so that when they make that change, it sends that performance, the edited performance, to the phone of the actor. The actor can then review that and say, yep, that looks okay, fine. And of course they get paid for that little change. Or they can say, no, I don't like that, the way you've edited that performance. As the director, I understand you want me to say that line differently. Let me re-record it. Re-record it onto the phone, boom, goes back into the system, done. It's amazing.
That is amazing.
So things are going to change, and it's going to change everywhere, not just, in production or speaking.
Wow.
Mark,
go ahead, Cathey.
No, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead. I wanted to ask you a question, but go ahead first.
I actually thought about a question that was asked even before we got started, which was, when you consider the examples you just gave, the question we threw out was, what would an AI assistant look like in the speaking world? And I'm curious, Steve, about your thoughts, and then Cathey, I want to hear your question.
For me, I want an assistant that does all the things I don't want to do, or to help me do the things that I do well even better. So the things I would like help, I'd like an AI assistant that can go and help market me, that can do all my contracts for me and do all the back and forth with people who are booking my time and ask all the questions so that they can prep for me a sheet that they give to me and just says, here's your client that you're going to do next week. Here's all the background that I've done, all this research on the company for you to prep you to be really successful. And I also want an assistant that can help me create my content. I love PowerPoint. It's really freakishly bad that I love it so much. But I love playing with PowerPoint and making my visuals absolutely beautiful. And I really put a lot of time, effort into that so they just look really great. But having an assistant to help me do that more effectively would be fantastic. So those are the things I would most want. And, you know, probably a travel assistant that goes and books all my travel, understands all of my preferences, where in the plane I want to sit, which airports I don't like connecting through, that sort of thing. So just like a human assistant that I would have do that, but an AI. What about you? What would you like out of a speaking assistant?
All of that, and somebody to do my tax preparation. I don't want to deal with all that, right? Like, I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you start thinking about the possibilities of all the things, I love how you framed it. All the things you don't want to do. There's so many things. I love creating stuff, and like, for instance, into books, but I like speaking more than I like writing. So if an AI assistant knew my voice, my tone, and I could create something by giving kind of an outline or saying, I want this, and it would come out in my voice and the way I would say it, that would be amazing.
We're pretty close to that. AI
Yeah.
ghostwriter. Yeah.
Right.
And
Seems like 2 years from now, people look at this, what we're saying right here, and be like, when was this recorded? In like 1990? Like, what is this?
Steve, I love speaking and I love coaching, right? But they often say, you can't forget the sales part of this. You can't forget the business part of this.
Right.
And that's the part that sometimes sucks the fun out of it sometimes, right? And it's like, oh, if I could have an AI who did all of the business part, like, or even if you're organizing an event, it's like, I just want to go up there and talk. I don't want to organize the event and figure out those details. Somebody do it for me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. That's what I would love to have an AI assistant.
And one of the categories of AIs that we'll see fairly soon, I think, is a set of coaches. So a business coach for speakers to help them develop their business, help them figure out ways to reach new audiences, to expand, beyond kind of organic growth, to do analysis over best use of marketing funds, for example. I think that's very likely in the next few years. Entrepreneurial coaches, yeah, all of the above.
You inspired me to write down earlier, it's not about being replaceable, it's about being scalable. And that's one of the big things that I'm really taking away from this. I got another question, but Cathey, I wanted to hear your question first.
Yeah, no, I started thinking about our business and what we do. And Marc, you're such a personable person. My question to you was going to be, how much do you think you would remove yourself out of this? That's what I was going to ask you. It's like, how much, and I think you kind of almost answered it now. You'd like, I want to go on stages and still speak, right? Or I want to, and I can't even see you wanting, like, I know one of the things that you love is this interaction with people. If you could just go into full blown retirement mode, would you, or what would it look? I don't know. I was just trying to see you future casting to see like if you could just snap your fingers and do it, what would that look like for you, Marc?
Here's my answer. It's going to sound real strange, but my answer is yabba dabba do.
Okay.
All right. So I was a huge Flintstones fan. And there was this one episode, I think Fred went to like outer space or whatever, and they multiplied him thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and all of his multiplied, I don't know what they were, robots, android, whatever they were. They could only say one thing: yabba dabba do. That was it. That was it. That was. But ultimately, he had all of these versions that would go out there. And Steve, I'm going back to what you're saying. Like, if I could just get in front of a couple of audiences and have my yabba dabba do drones or whatever androids out there in the rest of the world, going to 6 continents. That would be cool.
Yeah. That would be cool. Steve, what about you? The same question. Like, what like you love to give this presentation. You were saying that you
Yeah, I love speaking. I love inspiring and informing audiences. That's what I live for. Make that connection. When I look out in the audience and I see a penny drop, or I've been watching Mark today, and like I can see his brain's going, and I'm like, yes, this is what I live for. I love doing that, and I probably could retire now, but I keep doing what I do because I love it, and I think the message I have is so important for people to know, because everybody wants to know about AI. They're all a bit scared of it. There's things we should be scared of and we should be cautious about, but there's so much potential to do good. And that's when I think about my own personal mission, it is to help people build a better future. That's kind of my mission statement, personal mission statement. And AI is the most powerful tool out there to help people build a better future. And in the medical world, that's going to be scientific breakthroughs with protein folding and drug discovery and that sort of thing. On engineering, it's going to be creating new chips and designing new materials, new crystalline structures. DeepMind just announced that they 10x'd the known number of stable compounds last week with their GNOME AI.
Wow.
It's all happening so quickly. So I'm super, as you can tell, I'm super passionate about this stuff, and I love to inspire audiences to get beyond the fear and find their curiosity and ask questions like, how could we ... using AI? I love it. I love it.
Steve, I share that passion. And I think the reason why I joked about, my Yabba Dabba Doo clone or my Marc Williams clone is because on the flip side, if I could have the opportunity to go out to as many audiences as I could, but to have my AI digital version go out to others, that would allow me to take all of that extra time and pour it back into my family, into everything else. And isn't that often the human conflict, that as we find what we absolutely are passionate about doing, that we could do 24 hours a day, sometimes we take a time away from other things that we enjoy.
Yeah.
This is what partnering up with AI could allow.
It just gives you more choice, right? To decide what to do. I guess the other reason I would use a surrogate AI, a delegate, to go to an event and appear on my behalf, if the client was okay with that, would be so I didn't disappoint an audience. If I get stuck in an airport in a snowstorm, or I'm already booked that day. I mean, this happens a lot, as you know. You're booked it one day, and then a client comes in and says, hey, are you available? I'm already booked. I'm so sorry. Could we do it a different day? No, that's the date of the event. And so, you miss out on some business, but two, you're disappointing an audience. So I'd love to be able to have that flexibility to send a digital surrogate as a backup plan.
Oof. You just hit a nerve with me, Steve. I have a potential new client that will probably yield a lot of good big business. And the first thing that they're trying to come up with creative ways to kind of like start forging a relationship. And the first thing that they came up with was a date that I'm going to be in London. And this is already an existing big client. So I'm like, oh, I can't. And it hurt to say it out loud. So yeah, that's such an interesting possibility. I wonder on the social end too, Mark and Steve, like how good would our, I think we were talking about this on another show, right? Family plus time equals conflict, or people plus time equals conflict. We were talking about this on another show. I wonder how much our relationships will change and evolve as we've had more time. Because you just said it, Steve, it's a choice. And so the choice might be to pick up another sport. Like I like to play pickleball, but maybe I could do pickleball and soccer, or, whatever, like you have more time. I don't know. It's just interesting. It is very interesting to think how you would create your life given way more choice, I would say.
Yeah. And could we imagine an AI that would coach us and help us to form more meaningful, stronger relationships? Whether that's a romantic relationship or a work relationship or a friend relationship. One of the types of assistants that I've imagined is for people who are on the spectrum and maybe have low EQ, they don't pick up on some of those signals. You can get them in real trouble. They can't tell whether someone is enthusiastic or angry with them or whatever it might be. So to have a coach that can sort of whisper in their ear and just help them stay grounded and focused and coach them on the conversation. That's one example of bringing somebody who has a deficit versus the average human and help to bring them up so that they can navigate that world more effectively. But you can imagine taking it for an average person and sort of supersizing their EQ and helping to coach them on being a more empathetic person or a more persuasive person or whatever it might be. Sort of a human skills and communication skills coach. And I absolutely can imagine something like that in the next 5 to 10 years.
You know what I love about that? Cathey, you were talking about, and Steve, you were talking about, oh, if I can't make this event, right? And then I think about people that I've coached, who are in leadership positions, supervising a whole bunch of people. And I remember getting an emergency call, right? Like, I can't wait till that session because something is happening right now. But what if I'm not available? But to be able to have that AI surrogate coach who could be there at the times when I couldn't, that's powerful because people, we don't want to always be accessible 24 hours a day, right? And I feel that we've gotten into that, you got to check email all 24. But to be able to have something that, again, gives you that flexibility, gives you that choice, makes you available, even when you're sleeping or with family, so that you can still be there for other people, that's powerful.
Yeah, and it's certainly, even if it's not as good as in person, it's better than voicemail, right?
Steve, I really need you. Where are you?
Right.
Turn Terminator off and stop watching that movie.
Oh, I love this one. My husband wanted me to go with him to see a comedian that we love comedy and we love to watch stand-up comedy. And I didn't like this particular one. I could just send my digital version or my assistant on a date with my husband.
You better stop.
I better stop. I should probably stop. I'm getting into like Terminator stuff, but I'm like, I don't want to see all that, but I want you to experience the full, experience with Cathey. Yeah.
Although that probably would stop a lot of fights on Thanksgiving or Super Bowl Sunday. Turn the game off. I don't have to turn the game off. I'll send my AI over in the kitchen with you in the other room.
They can be up to date on the football scores.
Yes. Let's not take it that far, y'all. Let's not take it.
Yeah. Love it.
I wanted to start to wrap, but Steve, you said something earlier that even if we don't get to discuss it full out, you talked about the importance of teaching resilience, grit, and curiosity. And I'm just curious, I'd love to hear from you. How do you teach curiosity?
That's a fine question. And I'm not a teacher. So I think when I interact with my nieces and nephews, I don't have children. When I talk with people, I just try and get them hooked with fresh ideas and try and make those ideas concrete by backing them up with examples to just try and snare their curiosity. I think it's something you fuel by practicing. It's like a muscle, right? If you use it, you're going to build it and use it more. So I think it's being presented information that you find interesting in a way that you can consume and find interesting. So that's probably the best answer I have. But I would talk to a teacher rather than me.
Yeah. I think that's a great answer, Steve. I think it's a really good answer.
I pulled it out of my ass. So,
and you are a great teacher, by the way. That's not true what you're saying. You really are. Yeah. That's a good question though, Marc. I like it.
Well, I wanted to ask you because I think it's really important. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about the future and people get very scared and uncomfortable and anxious about the future. And one thing that I've ultimately heard is one thing that's going to keep us afloat and keep us ahead is curiosity. Curiosity around how to scale, curiosity around how to partner, curiosity around how to just do things differently, right? And to adjust. And so I think that was a really important thing that you said that I wanted to make sure that everybody who's watching and listening hears, that curiosity is key. So we have to learn how to continue to teach it.
Yeah, and I'd add on top of that, it's not only important for kids, it is important for all of us. If we want to maintain relevance in the workplace, we're going to have to work with these machines to help elevate our skills and our capabilities and help us improve our productivity, our effectiveness, the quality of our output, and so on. And that means you have to be curious. You have to try out these new tools, see how they work, see what works in your workflows. And there's tons of stuff for speakers already. Now, all of the backgrounds for my slides, all of the images in my slides are AI generated. I make them with an AI. I don't find them on Getty Images anymore. There are slide making AIs out there. There are transcription AIs out there. All these things that are relevant to speakers. But in order to find them out and try them, you have to be curious. And there's a great adage, which I think is so true, which is an AI will not take your job, but somebody using an AI probably will. So make sure that person is you taking someone else's job, not someone else taking your job.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. Cathey, you and I could probably figure out a way to AI. It's about to go down, but I never want to replace you. I never want to replace you.
Same, Mark,
No,
same.
no.
I'll always bring my real version here.
Absolutely, absolutely. But then we'll get distribution and have AI do it in China and everywhere else across the world.
Totally, because I can't speak Chinese right now. So I agree. Like, yes, I agree with that. I love it.
Oh, Steve, there's been such a fun conversation. Yeah, tell us, since we started this conversation, and you are the expert, I don't know if we have anything to add to your brilliance. But with that said, what has kind of stood out to you or blown up in your head since we started this conversation?
I think there's the inevitability of what's coming, but also to best navigate that course, whatever the course is ahead. And there's all this possibility that's going to open up for us all with this abundantly available intelligence technology. The best way to navigate through that is to maintain a good, firm grasp on our own humanity and to use these technologies to amplify and elevate that humanity. Don't worry about being replaced. Worry a little bit to give you, if you need that, if you don't have enough curiosity to drive you forward, then maybe a bit of fear will get you going. But use that use the reserves of curiosity you have to embrace this stuff, because it's going to make life way more fun. Because to your point, Cathey, it's going to let you offload all the stuff you don't want to do and help you be better at the stuff you do love doing. And for all of us, probably many of the people watching this, the time where we feel the universe flowing through us is when we're on stage, making people happy, learning something, giving them something to think about for weeks or months afterwards, right? That's what we live for. Let's figure out ways to use technology to help us do more of that and to do it even better for our audiences, to serve our audiences better. So that's what I took away from this is that conversation we had about humanity at the core, and then it's about amplification, scaling, elevation of humanity so that we can do more.
Love that.
Right. Use technology to elevate humanity. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Steve, if anybody wants to, and if everybody wants to find out more about you, the work you do, how they can bring you in to talk them through this, how do they find you? How do they get in touch with you?
Super easy. stevebrown.ai. Easy URL. They'll take you to my website. You can see the kind of stuff I do. You can reach out to me through the website, or you can email me direct, steve@bald, baldfuturist.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Bald, no hair.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Awesome. Well, listen, you heard it here. There's nothing to be afraid of, or if you're going to be afraid, use it as motivation, use your curiosity as motivation. It's coming. It's the future, and we can definitely get ahead of it. If anybody wants to get ahead of the next thing that's happening in the world, which is the idea that's cooking up in your head, or if you know somebody who's got an idea cooking up in their head and they want to have a conversation with Cathey and I'd love to tell you to go to it'sabouttogodownshow.ai, but we don't have that email address yet.
Not yet.
But you can go to It's About to Go Down Show and get in touch with us. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Steve, thank you so much for blowing up our minds and having this wonderful idea conversation. You definitely took us to the future. We look forward to having future conversations with you. To everybody else, thank you for joining us for another episode. Cathey, I love you, girl. I love you, girl.
I love you. I love you, Mark.
And I hope you enjoyed this episode of It's About to Go Down.